Mom, I'm going on my honeymoon. Take care of my Antonio. My daughter left with her boyfriend of 2 weeks and left my special needs grandson for me to care for. So I decided the worst. I know. It's crazy. Who goes on a honeymoon with a guy she's known for 15 days? My daughter. That's the answer. My Laura, the girl who collected butterflies in jam jars and now treats her life like one of those collections. Quick, impulsive, without thinking about the consequences. The note is pinned with a colorful magnet on the refrigerator door, right next to a clumsy and wonderful drawing of a sun with glasses that Antonio made for me. Laura's handwriting is round, childish, as if time hadn't passed since she was 12. Mom, I'm going on my honeymoon. Take care of my Antonio. She doesn't say I love you. She doesn't say I'll be back on. She doesn't apologize. She doesn't explain. It's a cold telegram, thrown into the void of my kitchen on any Tuesday morning. The paper, a fluorescent pink post-it, seems to mock me with its cheerful color. I read it over and over until the letters lose meaning and become black scribbles on a background that hurts my eyes. Antonio. My Antonio. My gaze shifts from the note to the living room chair, where he sleeps soundly, covered with the checkered blanket I knitted for Laura when she was little. His breathing is a hoarse whisper, a small engine of peace. He's 5 years old, and yes, he has Down syndrome. That label people use with so much nonsense, as if it defined who he is. Antonio is, simply, Antonio. He's the light of my tired eyes, the sun with glasses on my refrigerator. He's the boy who taught me that patience isn't a virtue, but a gift, and that a hug can heal any wound of the soul. And his mother, my daughter, has left him with me. She's gone with that Esteban. A ghost with a crocodile smile and cheap promises, who appeared 2 weeks ago like a whirlwind, shaking the fragile stability that Laura and Antonio had built after his biological father disappeared without a trace. 2 weeks, 14 days to decide she's getting married and going on her honeymoon. Where? No idea. For how long? Even less. A wave of cold runs down my back, despite the sticky heat of the July morning. The house, normally my refuge, suddenly feels enormous, empty, and hostile. The tick-tock of my grandmother's cuckoo clock sounds like a hammer against my skull. Tick-tock. She left. Tick-tock. She left. Tick-tock. What are you going to do? And then, as if a hand of ice squeezed my stomach, the decision forms in my mind, clear and terrible. It's not an idea that arises, it's a certainty that settles, heavy as a slab. I can't do it. I can't carry this burden again. I raised Laura alone, fighting against every bill, every sleepless night, every tear of loneliness. I watched her fall, make mistakes, and now this, abandoning her son. My boy, I don't have the strength. I already gave everything I had. I decided the worst. It's not a dramatic decision. There's no anger in it. It's a surrender. A fatigue so deep it sinks its roots into my bones. I'm going to call social services. I'm going to tell them that my daughter has abandoned her child with special needs and that I, his grandmother, a 58-year-old woman with incipient arthritis and a tired heart, can't take it on. The simple thought makes me stagger. I lean on the kitchen counter, the cold formica under my sweaty palms. From here, I see Antonio's profile, his half-open mouth, his blonde eyelashes, so fine they look angelic. How can I even think it? But how can I not? It's the logical solution, the one the world would understand. The overwhelmed grandmother, the irresponsible mother, a clear case. The sound of my own breathing, labored, brings me back to reality. I grab the cell phone, that device that always resists me. I hold it clumsily, my fingers, already a bit deformed by years and rheumatism, searching for the numbers. I don't know the direct number for social services. I'll have to call 112. An emergency. Yes, this is an emergency, the emergency of a life falling apart. Antonio moves in the chair. He makes a small moan, a soft whimper that paralyzes my heart. He turns around, looking for a more comfortable position, and the blanket slips a little from his shoulder. I approach quietly, stepping on the kitchen tiles with the caution of a thief. I lean over him. He smells of sleep, of cookies, and of that unique fragrance of children, of clean skin and future. I tuck him in again, adjusting the blanket under his chin, his hand, small and chubby, with that simian line that doctors like to show so much, unconsciously grabs the blanket's fringe. "Grandma," he murmurs, "asleep." The word, so simple, so full of trust, pierces me like a spear. I drop to my knees next to the chair, the phone still clutched in my hand. The tears, finally, break the dam. They're not noisy tears, they're silent, desperate. They fall on the blanket fabric, leaving small dark spots. "I'm sorry, my love," I whisper, caressing his cheek so soft like silk. "I'm so sorry." Who am I saying it to? To him? To Laura? To myself? I stay there, kneeling, for I don't know how long. The world is reduced to his breathing, and the accelerated beating of my blood in my ears, until a noise startles me. It's the sound of a car braking harshly outside, on the street, a car door slamming. My body tenses. Laura? Has she regretted it? Has she come to her senses? A spark of hope, mean and treacherous, ignites in my chest. I get up with difficulty, my knees creaking, and approach the window, carefully pulling aside the faded flower curtain. It's not Laura's car. It's a taxi, and from the passenger seat comes not my daughter, but an older woman with a long, dark coat despite the heat, and an air of authority that crosses the distance and glass. She carries a small, elegant suitcase. Her figure seems vaguely familiar, but my mind, clouded by panic and confusion, can't place her. The woman pays the taxi driver and turns, looking directly at the house, as if she knew I was watching. Her face lights up with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, and then, like a flash, I recognize her. It's Carmen, Esteban's mother. I had never seen her in person, only in a photo that Laura showed me with naive pride a few days ago. "She's very cultured, Mom. Comes from a very fine family," she said. In the photo, Carmen smiled with glacial distance. Now that smile is 20 meters from my door. What is she doing here? Where are Laura and Esteban? The note said honeymoon. Weren't they supposed to be leaving together? Carmen advances down the stone path of the garden, with determined steps. Her heels click against the morning silence. An ominous sound announcing an intrusion. She stops in front of the main door. She doesn't hesitate. She rings the bell, a shrill bell that makes Antonio stir in the chair. Sweetheart. Go back to sleep." I tell him in a whisper, though I know it's useless. The damage is done. The bell rings again, longer this time, impatient. My mind is a whirlwind. Do I open? Do I pretend I'm not here? But she's seen me. She knows I'm here, and something in her attitude, in that imperturbable presence, tells me that running away is not an option. With trembling legs, I head to the door. Each step is an effort. Antonio rubs his eyes, waking up completely. "Grandma, who is it?" he asks with a sleepy voice. "I don't know, sweetheart," I reply. And it's the most absolute truth I've said in my life. I grab the door handle, cold and heavy. I breathe deeply, as if preparing to dive into icy waters, and turn. The door opens with a slight creak. Carmen is there, framed in the doorway. She's taller than she seemed from a distance, and her gaze of steely gray runs over me from top to bottom, evaluating me, measuring me. She wears a simple but good quality dress and a pearl necklace that shines with a dim light. She smells of expensive perfume, an aroma of flowers and something metallic that invades my entrance and mixes with the coffee smell of my house. "Elena," she says, not as a question, but as a statement. Her voice is soft, educated, but has a steel edge. "I'm Carmen, Esteban's mother. I think it's time we talked." "Talk to us," I manage to articulate, feeling ridiculously vulnerable in my old bathrobe and swollen eyes from crying. "About what? Where is Laura?" Carmen sketches a condescending smile. "That's precisely the issue. Could we come in? It doesn't seem appropriate to discuss this at the door." Without waiting for an invitation, she takes a step forward, forcing me to step back. She enters my house, as if it were hers. Her gaze scrutinizes the living room, Antonio's toys scattered on the floor, the books piled on the coffee table, the photo of my deceased husband on the fireplace mantel. Her expression is inscrutable, but I can't help the feeling that she's judging every inch, finding it all deficient. Antonio, from the chair, observes her with his almond eyes, full of curiosity and a hint of wariness. "Hello, little one," Carmen says, with a forced sweetness that doesn't convince anyone. "Are you Antonio?" Antonio looks at me, seeking guidance. I smile at him, a tense smile that hurts my face. "Yes, he's Antonio," I say, instinctively placing myself between her and the boy. "Carmen, please, what's happening? Where is my daughter?" She sits on the edge of the sofa, as if afraid of contamination. She places her purse next to her, with millimetric precision. "Laura and Esteban are traveling, as I suppose you know." "I know they've left. The note says so." I point toward the refrigerator, where the pink post-it still shines like a wound. "But a honeymoon is two people. Why are you here?" Carmen sighs, a sigh of infinite patience, as if explaining something to a small child bored her. "Elena, let's be frank, what Laura has done is imprudent. Leaving a child like this," she makes a slight gesture with her head toward Antonio, who has remained still, observing the scene with unusual attention, with his particularities, "is reckless. Esteban is a wonderful man, but impulsive. He's let himself be carried away by Laura's charm, which is undeniable, but she lacks perspective." Each of her words is like a small blow. A child like this, his particularities. She talks about Antonio as if he were a problem, a defective object. "And what do you have to do with this?" I ask, containing the anger that begins to boil inside me. "It has to do," she says, lowering her voice to a cutting thread, "because I do think about consequences. Esteban is not prepared to be a stepfather, and less of a child with Down syndrome. It's an enormous responsibility for life. Laura, well, Laura is young. She has her whole life ahead of her. Maybe this marriage was a mistake." The air is cut. Antonio, who has been listening in silence, suddenly speaks. "Mommy left with Esteban. Honey, moon," he says, articulating each word carefully. Carmen looks at him, and for an instant I think I see a pang of something like pity in her gray eyes, but it disappears instantly. "Yes, sweetheart, they've left." "And are they coming back?" asks Antonio, with that simple and devastating logic of children. Carmen looks at me, defiant. That question, the one I haven't dared to formulate out loud, now floats in the room, poisoning the air. "That," says Carmen, turning toward me, "is what you and I have to decide, Elena." "Decide?" I reply, feeling how the ground gives way under my feet. "What do we have to decide? They are adults. They have made a decision. They have made an irresponsibility," she corrects coldly, "and now we find ourselves with the consequences. I have come here to propose a solution that benefits everyone." Antonio gets down from the chair and comes toward me, clinging to my leg. I feel his warm little body, his mute request for protection. I wrap my arm around him. "I don't want to hear any solution of yours, Carmen. The only thing I want to know is where my daughter is and when she's going to return." "Do you really think she's going to return?" she asks, and her voice is now a knife. "Do you really think that a 22-year-old girl who abandons her child with special needs to go with a man she barely knows intends to return? The note is a goodbye, Elena. You know it as well as I do." Her words resonate in the silence of the room, confirming the deepest fear I've harbored since reading that damned post-it. The decision I myself had made minutes before, to give up, pales before the coldness with which this woman exposes the situation. "No," I whisper. "Don't say that. It's reality." Carmen insists, and faced with reality, we have to be practical. I can offer Antonio a stable life, away from here. I have resources, contacts. I can ensure him the best care, specialized education, a future. I look at her, horrified. Is she saying what I think she's saying? What are you insinuating?" "I'm not insinuating anything, Elena. I'm saying it clearly. Let me take Antonio, sign the custody. I'll take care of him. You've already done enough. You deserve to rest. You deserve to live your life without this burden." Burden. The word falls between us like a bomb. I feel Antonio grab my leg tighter. He has understood enough. His little face clouds with confusion and fear. "No," says Antonio, with a trembling little voice. "I don't want to go with the lady. I want to stay with Grandma." Carmen ignores his comment completely. Her eyes don't leave mine. Think about it, Elena. What can you offer him? An older woman, with her ailments, a modest pension, and if something happens to you, who would take care of him then? Social services, a center. This is an opportunity, a dignified way out for everyone. That's when I see it clearly. This is not a courtesy visit. She's not a concerned grandmother. This is a mission. She has come to take my grandson. She has come to clean up her son's mistake, to eliminate the problem my daughter has left behind. Her proposal is a perverse echo of my own moment of weakness, but dressed in a suit of false charity and moral superiority. The rage, a pure and savage rage I hadn't felt in years, begins to burn in my chest, drying the tears of desperation. I no longer feel tired. I feel alert, dangerous. Get out of my house, I say, and my voice sounds strange, deep, full of an authority I didn't know I possessed. Carmen blinks, surprised by the change of tone. Elena, please, let's be reasonable. I said get out. I shout, pointing to the door with a trembling finger. This is my house, and Antonio is my grandson. He's not a burden. He's not a problem to be solved. He's my boy. Antonio starts crying, scared by my shout. I hug him tight against me. Choose, my love. Nothing's wrong. The lady is leaving right now. Carmen gets up slowly. Her expression is no longer condescending, but cold and hard as granite. You're making a very big mistake, Elena. A selfish mistake. You don't think about the boy's welfare. Antonio's welfare is here with me, I exclaim. Now leave, and don't come back. If you want to talk to someone, talk to your son and my daughter. They are the responsible ones, not us. Carmen takes her purse. She walks to the door with the same elegance with which she entered. She stops at the threshold and turns one last time. Laura is not coming back, Elena. I know it. Esteban has confirmed it to me. They've gone to Brazil. He has business there. It's a one-way trip. The note was so you wouldn't call the police immediately, to give you time to assimilate it. The words hit me with the force of a punch. Brazil, a one-way trip, the confirmation of my worst nightmares. I grab the doorframe to keep from falling. It's a lie, I gasp. I wish it were, she replies. And for the first time, I think I detect a hint of sincerity in her voice. Or maybe it's just another shade of her calculated cruelty. I'll give you 24 hours. Think about my proposal. It's the only sensible option. If not, you know what awaits the boy. Institutionalization. Do you think that will be better than what I can offer him? Without waiting for an answer, she turns and leaves. Her heels click on the path, each blow a reminder of her ultimatum. The taxi starts and drives away. I close the door slowly, turning the lock with a dull click that sounds like a period. I collapse against the wood, without strength. Antonio cries against my chest, his small body convulsed by sobs. Don't leave, Grandma, he cries. Don't leave like Mommy. No, sweetheart, no, I murmur, kissing his head. Grandma will never leave, never. I say it with a conviction born from the deepest part of my being. The decision to give up, to call social services, now seems like a distant nightmare, a moment of madness caused by pain. Carmen's coldness, her monstrous proposal, has rekindled a fire I thought was extinguished, the instinct to protect my family at any cost. I look around. The house no longer feels empty or hostile. It feels like a fortress. My fortress, and outside lurks the enemy, an enemy with pearls and a heart of ice. But Carmen's revelation, the confirmation that Laura is not coming back, tangles in my entrails like a hook. Is it true? Did Esteban know from the beginning? Was it all an elaborate lie to get rid of Antonio? While rocking my grandson, trying to calm him, an idea begins to take shape in my mind, an idea as dangerous as Carmen's, but this time, it's not born of surrender, but of fight. I have to know the truth. I have to find Laura. And then, I remember something Carmen said without meaning to. Esteban has confirmed it to me. Confirmed that they weren't coming back. That means there has been contact. Very carefully, I sit on the sofa with Antonio still in my arms. I take Laura's cell phone. She left it forgotten, or maybe on purpose, to make her disappearance more believable. I turn it on. The battery is low. I search desperately through the contacts. There's no Esteban, but there's an E with a heart. I dial the number. It rings once, twice, and then a female automated voice responds, cutting and clear. The number you have called is not available at this time. Please check the number and try again. I try again, and again. The same message. A phantom number. A severed connection. But Carmen did have contact. She knew how. Does she have another number? Has she talked to him through another line? Antonio has calmed down a bit, hiccuping softly. He looks at me with his red, tear-filled eyes. Grandma, is Mommy not coming back? The direct, innocent question breaks my soul. I can't lie to him, but I also can't tell him the cruel truth that Carmen has sown. I don't know, my love, I reply, stroking his cheek, but I'm going to do everything possible to find her. I promise. I look at the phone, then at the note on the refrigerator. Rage and desperation wage a battle inside me. But there's something else. A detail that my mind, in its initial state of shock, overlooked. Laura's handwriting. It's round, yes, childish, but she always put an accent on Mama. Always, since she learned to write, it was one of those things she did without fail, like a ritual. In the note, in that pink post-it that started it all, the word Mama is written in capital letters, and it doesn't have an accent. It could be an oversight. It could be the rush. But what if it's not? What if it wasn't Laura who wrote that note? The idea is so far-fetched, so full of poisonous hope, that it leaves me breathless. What if Laura didn't leave voluntarily? What if Esteban? No, it's madness. It's a desperate grandmother's theory. But then, why is Carmen here? Why that ultimatum? Why so much rush to take Antonio? The tension in the room is so palpable, I could cut it with a knife. Antonio looks at me, trusting, waiting for me to have all the answers, and I don't have any. I only have a knot of fear in my throat, and a terrible suspicion that begins to grow like a weed. The phone I'm holding in my hand, Laura's, suddenly vibrates, a subtle vibration, almost imperceptible. The screen lights up. It's not a call, it's a notification, from the bank app. An automatic message unfolds. A terse text in black on white. Credit card movement. Purchase approved. Guarulhos International Airport, São Paulo, 250,000 BRL. The screen goes dark. I stare at the black rectangle, my heart beating with a wild rhythm. São Paulo, Brazil. Carmen had told the truth about that. But the purchase is approved. Right now, a few minutes ago. If Laura is in Brazil, why is she still using her credit card? Weren't they supposed to have vanished? Wasn't it a one-way trip with no return? Unless the note was a lie. Unless Esteban's plan wasn't exactly as his mother thinks. Or unless Laura is trying, in the only way she can, to send a message. The revelation leaves me frozen. The note, without an accent. The purchase at the airport. Carmen's cold visit. The pieces don't fit. And the only certainty I have is that my daughter is in trouble, and that my grandson is the pawn in a terrible game I can't understand. The tension doesn't dissipate. It intensifies, transforms into an icy urgency. It's no longer just about protecting Antonio. It's about deciphering the truth before it's too late. I look at Antonio, who has fallen asleep from pure exhaustion on my chest. The vibration of the phone against my sweaty palm seems to repeat in my bones, a sinister echo of a reality that crumbles. São Paulo. The geographical confirmation of the escape should sink me, but instead it fans a feverish flame inside me. What I feel is not resignation, it's a sharp, primitive alert. Something smells rotten in this story, and the aroma reaches me wrapped in Carmen's expensive perfume and the absence of an accent. Antonio breathes deeply. Exhausted by crying and confusion, his weight against my chest is both an anchor and a devastating reminder of what's at stake. I can't collapse, not now. Carmen's icy gaze, her poisoned offer of dignity, has burned the last fiber of my fatigue. I'm no longer Elena, the tired grandmother. I'm the she-wolf cornered next to her cub. With infinite care, I get up from the sofa, holding Antonio as if he were made of glass. I walk slowly to his room, a small sanctuary full of stuffed dinosaurs and rainbow drawings. I put him to bed, tucking him in with his favorite superhero blanket. He curls up, bringing his fist to his chin, a childish gesture that breaks my soul. I kiss his forehead. "Sleep, my brave one," I whisper. "Grandma is here." I close the door, leaving a crack, and stand listening to his regular breathing for a moment. Then I return to the living room with the determination of a soldier entering a minefield. The pink post-it is still there, mocking. I tear it from the refrigerator with a brusque gesture. The paper crumples between my fingers. "Emioam, I'm going on my honeymoon. Take care of my Antonio." My eyes don't go to the word mom this time, but to my Antonio. "Laura, always, always," said my boy, or Antonio. My Antonio sounds forced, possessive in a way that wasn't her. These are tiny, insignificant details for anyone, but for a mother who has read every letter, every note from her daughter for 22 years, they're like beacons in the fog. I take Laura's phone. The battery shows 5%. One more anxiety. I search in the pockets of my bathrobe, finding my own cell phone, an old and simple model. With trembling but determined fingers, I look for Clara's number, my only true friend, the only person who has never judged me, who helped me raise Laura when my husband died. The call takes forever to connect. "Elena, everything okay, honey? You sound strange." Clara's voice, warm and full of sound wrinkles, is an instant balm. "Clara," I say, and my voice breaks. "No, nothing is okay." I tell her everything. All at once in a disordered torrent of words. The note, Carmen's visit, the proposal, Brazil, the missing accent. The silence on the other end of the line is thick, loaded. "My God, Elena," she finally murmurs. "That woman, she's a harpy. I knew it from when Laura told me about her. But the note thing, are you sure?" As sure as the sun rises in the east. "Clara, Laura doesn't write ama without an accent, and she doesn't say my Antonio. It's as if someone had tried to imitate her way of writing, and had made a mistake in the most basic thing. Do you think Esteban forced her? That he has her kidnapped?" The word said out loud sends an icy shiver down my spine. I don't know. But something doesn't add up. Carmen came here on a mission. She wants to take Antonio, and she said Esteban confirmed to her that they weren't coming back. Why would Laura use her card at the airport if they're supposed to have vanished? Is it a signal? Is it Esteban's oversight? Or it's a trap, says Clara, with her pragmatic brutality. So you believe she's alive and well, and you lower your guard. I can't lower my guard. Carmen gave me 24 hours. Let her go to hell with her hours. Elena, you have to call the police, right now. And what do I tell them? I ask, desperate. That my adult daughter went on a trip with her new husband, and that her evil mother-in-law wants to keep my grandson. Without proof that Laura is in danger, they won't take me seriously. The note, even if it's fake, looks like voluntary abandonment. Carmen would use it against me. They could take him from me too, Clara. If they declare Laura incapable, and me an unstable old woman, the fear, real and tangible, strangles me. The system doesn't always protect the most vulnerable. Sometimes it crushes them. Clara breathes deeply. I hear the click of a lighter. She's smoking, a habit she quit years ago and only resorts to in moments of extreme stress. Okay, calm down. Let's think. The card. It's a trail. Can you access the bank online? Do you know Laura's passwords? A ray of hope. Laura, so careless with everything, was meticulous with her passwords. She wrote them all down in a small blue agenda she kept in her nightstand drawer. She always told me, in case something happens to me, Mom. Now that teenage precaution could be our salvation. Yes, I think so. I'm going to look for it. Do it. I'm coming over right now. I don't want you to be alone. And Elena. She pauses. Take the meat knife and put it in an accessible drawer, just in case. The crudeness of her words doesn't scare me. It reaffirms me. I hang up and, with my heart racing, go to Laura's bedroom. It's intact, as if she had just stepped out to buy bread. The unmade bed, one of her sweaters thrown over the chair. I smell her perfume, that sweet scent of vanilla and jasmine, and a pang of pain so sharp pierces me that I have to lean against the wall. Where are you, my daughter? I open the nightstand drawer. There are tissues, a poetry book, some old photos, and there it is, the blue agenda, worn at the corners. I leaf through it with fingers that don't seem mine. I find the bank page, user and a long, complicated password. I return to the living room, turn on the old laptop I use to look at recipes. Time dilates. Every second it takes to start is an eternity. Finally, I access the bank's page. I enter the data, the screen flickers and loads the account. And there it is. The story of the last few days. I shudder. There are strange movements, large cash withdrawals, 300, 500 euros, from ATMs in the city center, the last 3 days. Laura never withdrew so much cash. Then, a payment at an expensive jewelry store, a ring, the wedding, and then, silence. Until today, the payment at Guarulhos airport, 250 Brazilian reais, a taxi, maybe, or food. But there's another movement, made barely an hour after the airport payment. An online payment, on a website whose name makes me hold my breath, farmaciaonlinebrasil.com. I click on the detail. It doesn't give product information, only the amount, 120 reais, medications. Laura doesn't take anything. Esteban, or is it for? I don't dare think it. The last movement is the most disturbing. Half an hour ago, a bank transfer from an account I don't recognize, in the name of E. Montenegro. They've deposited 5,000 euros into Laura's account. Who is E. Montenegro? Esteban. Why is someone transferring money to Laura? Or is she the one transferring? The screen doesn't clarify. It only shows the deposit. My mind accelerates, connecting the dots in the most terrible way possible. The cash, the expensive jewelry, the sudden trip to Brazil, the money deposit, the online pharmacy. It sounds like escape, like payment, like something sinister. The doorbell rings again, brusque, shrill. I jump up, startled. Carmen? Already? Has she come back early? I close the laptop with a slam and approach the window, pulling aside the curtain with one finger. It's not Carmen's taxi. It's a delivery truck. A man in an orange uniform holds a small package. Package for Laura Marquez, he shouts. I hesitate, but maybe it's another clue. I nod, trying to look tired, normal. I open the door only what's necessary. I'm her mother. I can sign for it. The delivery guy, a young and sleepy boy, passes me a PDA. I sign a scribble. He gives me the package, a brown and flat envelope, and leaves. I close the door and examine it. There's no sender, only Laura's address printed on a label. I weigh it in my hands. It's light. I open it carefully, tearing the adhesive tape. Inside there's nothing but a white envelope, unmarked, and inside this, a single sheet of paper. It's folded in 4. I unfold it. It's a black and white photocopy of an official document. At the top it says, in Portuguese, Certificado de Matrimonio. My eyes scan the information, looking for the names, and there they are. Laura Marquez Lopez and Esteban Delgado Montenegro. The date leaves me breathless. It's not from 2 days ago. It's not from this week. The marriage was celebrated 3 months ago, in Sao Paulo. The room spins around me. I lean against the wall, dizzy. 3 months. Lies. Everything has been a lie. Her boyfriend of 2 weeks had been her husband for 3 months. Why did she hide it? Why stage this farce of the lightning wedding and honeymoon? And then, I see it. At the bottom of the certificate, in a barely legible stamp, there's a notation next to Esteban's name, divorced. Legal custody of incapacitated minor revoked by Sentence 45/2023. Family Court of São Paulo. The air cuts off in my lungs. Esteban wasn't just married before, he had a child. An incapacitated child. And they took away his custody. Why? The final piece of the puzzle fits with a dry and brutal blow. Carmen is not here just to clean up her son's mistake. She's here to ensure that Esteban can keep a new child with Antonio without Laura's interference, to replace the one he lost. The fake note, the trip to Brazil, the money deposit. Did Esteban buy Laura? Did he convince her with money to leave and abandon Antonio? Or is there something much, much worse? The photocopy falls from my hands and floats to the floor. I turned toward the closed door of Antonio's room. My boy, my son. The truth hasn't brought me relief. It has thrown me into the jaws of a much deeper nightmare. Carmen doesn't just want to take Antonio, she wants to erase Laura from the map. And her son, my son-in-law, is a man who has already lost custody of a child for reasons that now seem terrifyingly obvious. The ultimatum is no longer a threat. It's a countdown to an announced tragedy. And then, my phone rings. Not Laura's, mine, an unknown number. With the prefix from Brazil. My hand trembles so much, I almost drop the device. I accept it and bring it to my ear. Without saying anything, I just listen. On the other side, there's no voice, just a sound. A sound I know as well as my own heartbeat. It's Laura's labored breathing, the little gasp she makes when she's about to cry, but holds back with all her strength. And then, a whisper, so weak it's almost carried away by the distant static. Mom? And the line cuts off. The silence that remains is more terrifying than any scream. I stand paralyzed, looking at the phone's black screen, the photocopy of the marriage certificate at my feet. My daughter's voice, loaded with indescribable terror, has confirmed all my suspicions. This is no longer a family drama. This is a kidnapping. And I have 24 hours to prevent them from taking my grandson forever. The silence was absolute. The call's disconnection wasn't a clean cut, but a drowning, as if the ocean waters separating us had closed their surface over my daughter's last and desperate whisper. That word, that sound that had shaped my life, became a phantom echo in my ear, a silent scream that resonated louder than any siren. I looked at the marriage certificate photocopy on the floor. The words "custody revoked" seemed to bleed black ink on the paper. Esteban wasn't an impulsive adventurer. He was a predator, a man who had already had a child taken away for reasons my terrified mind didn't dare imagine. And now he had Laura, and he wanted Antonio. The decision I made then wasn't the fruit of reason. It was a visceral instinct, a storm of fury and fear that swept away all doubt. I was no longer a grandmother. I was a cornered beast, and my lair was this house, with my cubs sleeping inside. The doorbell rang again. Insistent, imperious. It wasn't the delivery man this time. It was Carmen's heels, which I imagined sharp as stilettos against the porch. 24 hours. Her time had ended before it began. Or mine had started running. I didn't open. I approached the door and pressed my forehead against the cold wood. "Go away, Carmen," I said, with a voice I didn't recognize, hoarse and full of a hatred I didn't know I could harbor. "I know the truth. I know about your son. I know about the other child." The silence on the other side was more eloquent than any protest. Then her voice, serene but with a crack of steel, pierced the door. "I don't know what you're talking about, Elena. Open up. Let's talk like adults, for the boy's sake." "The boy's good is being with his family," I spat. "Not with a monster and the woman who covers for him." "You're delirious," she replied, and I perceived a tremor of anger in her tone. "The stress is affecting you. Do you see why you're not in condition to take care of him?" I looked toward Antonio's room. The door crack was dark, sleeping, innocent of the hell developing around him. I felt a wave of strength, for him, for Laura. "I've called the police, Carmen." I lied, with the greatest conviction I could muster. "I've told them everything, about the certificate, about the revoked custody, about Laura's call. They're on their way." It was a desperate bluff, but it worked. I heard a slight clearing of throat, a shift of weight. "That's stupid," she said, but her voice had lost its crystalline confidence. "You'll only complicate things. For Laura too." "For Laura?" I almost screamed. "Where is my daughter Carmen? What has your son done to her?" "They're on their honeymoon," she responded, automatically like a worn mantra. "Lie!" I heard her. She called me. "She's scared." This time, the silence was long, heavy. When she spoke again, all pretense of civility had disappeared. Her voice was a poisonous thread. "Listen to me carefully, Elena. You have no proof of anything. I do have resources. I can have a psychological evaluation, declare you incompetent in a matter of hours. I can make this place uninhabitable for a child. You'll sign the custody, today, or you'll regret it." The threat was clear and dirty. I shuddered. I knew she wasn't bluffing. People like her played with different rules on a board where money and contacts moved pieces I couldn't even see. I'm not going to sign anything, I said, with a calm that surprised me. And if you come near this house, near my grandson, I'll scream until the dead rise. I heard a dry noise, as if she had hit the door with her fist. Then her steps, fast and furious, moving away down the path. The car started and drove away at full speed. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor, trembling like jelly. The adrenaline retreated, leaving me empty and terrified. What had I done? Had I just declared war on a woman who could destroy me with one call? The sound of weak crying came from the room. Antonio, the shouting had woken him up. I dragged myself there, my legs refusing to support me. He was sitting on the bed, with his eyes like saucers, full of tears. "Grandma, are you angry?" "No, sweetheart. No," I said, hugging him tightly, burying my face in his neck. "Grandma isn't angry. Grandma is fighting. Like superheroes." "Yes, my love. Like superheroes." I rocked him until he calmed down, but I couldn't calm down. The lie about having called the police gave me a respite, but only that Carmen would return. With papers, with lawyers, with someone from City Hall. I had to do something. I had to find real proof, something that demonstrated Laura was in danger. I remembered the bank transfer, Montenegro, and the online pharmacy. With Antonio in my arms, I returned to the laptop. Laura's phone battery was dead. I connected it to a charger, and with one hand, while with the other, I caressed Antonio's back, I searched for Pharmacia Online Brazil.com and the product bought for 120 Rs. The website was generic. It gave no details, but in expatriate forums I found a clue that amount at that online pharmacy matched the price of a very specific medication with restricted sale, a strong sedative. Etifalina. My heart froze. What did they need a sedative for? For Laura, so she wouldn't cause problems? Or for, I couldn't continue the thought. Then, I searched for Montenegro Brazil and custody revoked. Generic searches gave no results, but then I remembered the full name from the certificate, Esteban Delgado Montenegro, and I added São Paulo. And there, in the depths of a digitized local newspaper, I found a small news item from a year ago. The headline was terse. Judge revokes custody from father after finding extreme negligence. The article spoke of Esteban Delgado Montenegro and his daughter, 11 months old, with cerebral palsy. The girl was found neglected and dehydrated in her crib while Esteban traveled on business. Custody was granted to social services. There was no mention of the mother, only the father. The father who was now with my daughter. I had the proof that Esteban was dangerous, but it wasn't enough. I needed to know where they were. I needed to hear Laura's voice again. The day transformed into a nightmare of vigilant waiting. Every car that passed made me jump. Every noise in the house was an intrusion. I fed Antonio, played with him mechanically, my ears and eyes glued to the windows. Clara arrived an hour later, pale and determined. She brought bread, cheese, and a fierce determination in her gaze. She didn't ask questions. She simply hugged me and began watching the street from the kitchen while I tried, in vain, to locate the number from which Laura had called. It was a masked number, impossible to trace. Evening fell, tinting the living room with orange tones and long shadows. Antonio fell asleep again on the sofa, exhausted by the tension. Clara and I sat at the kitchen table, in silence, drinking cold coffee we didn't want. "We have to go to the police, Elena," Clara said. "For the umpteenth time, with the newspaper thing, with the pharmacy. It's something. And what do we tell them? That my son-in-law is negligent and that's why we think he's kidnapped his new wife. Without proof that Laura doesn't want to be there, without a complaint from her." I shook my head, desperate. "Carmen will twist it. She'll say Laura left voluntarily, that I'm making things up out of jealousy or senility." But the call. It was a whisper, Clara, a gasp. "It's not proof." Suddenly, Laura's phone, now charged to 20%, vibrated on the table. It wasn't a call. It was a notification from a messaging app I didn't know she used. Telegram. My heart escaped from my chest. I grabbed the phone with trembling hands. I opened the app. There was only one chat, with The last message, sent a few minutes ago, was from him, a short text in Spanish. Did you call your mother? And below, the indicator that Laura was typing a response, the ellipsis dots danced on the screen. A torture. What was she writing? A denial? A plea? The dots disappeared. They appeared again. Disappeared again. It was a struggle. I could feel my daughter's fight on the other side of the screen. Finally, the response came. A single word. No. The most lying and bravest word I had read in my life. No. She was telling him no, to her captor. It was a cry for help disguised as submission. Immediately, E's response came. Good. Don't do it. Remember what I told you. Finish the medicine. It will make you feel better. The medicine. The sedative. My stomach twisted. Without thinking, I wrote. With clumsy fingers, I typed a message to E, impersonating Laura. I had to take the risk. Esteban, I feel very dizzy. The medicine is very strong. Where are we? I want to go out for air. I sent the message. The wait was agony. Clara approached, looking at the screen over my shoulder, holding her breath. The dots of E's typing appeared immediately. Then his response, You're in the apartment, on the 12th floor. You can't go out. Rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about the boy. The boy, Antonio. It was all that mattered. They wanted to talk about the boy. My blood boiled. I wrote again, forcing a weak, submissive tone. And my mom? Will she sign? The response was quick, brutal in its crudeness. My mother handles that. If she doesn't do it voluntarily, she'll do it the hard way. You worry about cooperating. That way everything will be easier for the little one. Cooperating. As if it were business. As if my daughter and grandson were merchandise. Clara grabbed my arm. Elena, this is a confession. It's not enough, I said, crying with rage and helplessness. It doesn't say where they are. The apartment 12th floor. It could be in any building in Sao Paulo. Suddenly, Laura's phone screen filled with white light, an incoming video call. From E. Clara and I looked at each other, terrified. Did we answer? Was it a trap? Did he want to see Laura? Or did he suspect something? Answer, whispered Clara with wide eyes. But don't show your face, just point the camera at the ceiling. We have to see. We have to hear. With a trembling finger, I slid the accept button. The screen split. Our side was black, because I covered the camera with a finger. The other side, at first it was blurry, then focused. It was a hotel room, impersonal, and there she was. Laura, sitting on a bed, pale, haggard, with deep, dark circles. She seemed to have aged 10 years. She wore a hotel bathrobe, and her gaze was empty, lost, like drugged. Laura, are you okay? Said Esteban's voice. Off camera. It was a soft, paternalistic voice that made me nauseous. Laura didn't respond. She just moved her head slowly, as if it weighed tons. Look at the camera, honey. I want to make sure you took the medicine. She raised her eyes to where the phone must be. Her eyes, so similar to Antonio's, met mine through the screen. She couldn't see me, but I could see her, and in that instant, for a fraction of a second, something broke in her gaze. A flash of lucidity, of absolute terror. Her lips moved, forming a silent word, a message just for me. Help me. Then, Esteban entered the frame, a handsome man, with an easy smile, who now seemed to me the devil's mask. He caressed Laura's hair. Very good. Now rest. Tomorrow is an important day. He addressed the camera, and his smile widened, as if he knew everything. Until tomorrow, then. The call ended. I stared at the black screen, paralyzed. My daughter's message, mute and heartbreaking, burned in my retina. Help me. Clara broke the silence, her voice trembling but full of fierce urgency. That is proof. We have to go to the police. Now, with this. With everything. I nodded, breathless. She was right. It was proof of psychological aggression, of coercion. It was something. But then, I looked at Antonio, sleeping peacefully on the sofa. Tomorrow, Esteban had said. Tomorrow is an important day. What did that mean? That Carmen would act tomorrow? That they would come for him? I couldn't wait. I couldn't risk the slow deadlines of bureaucracy. You call the police, Clara, I said, getting up with sudden energy. Explain everything to them. Show them the video call if you can. I have to do something else. What? What are you going to do, Elena? Asked Clara, alarmed. I'm going to give Carmen what she wants, I replied, and the phrase tasted like bile in my mouth. I opened a drawer and took out a notepad and pen. With a firm hand, but with a broken heart, I wrote at the top of a blank sheet, temporary custody transfer. I didn't know if it was legal. I didn't care. It was bait. Are you crazy? Whispered Clara. No, I said, writing quickly. It's a trap. I'm going to sign this. I'm going to tell her I give up. But only if she gives me an address. An address in Brazil where to send the papers. An address where Laura is. Clara looked at me. Understanding. It was desperate. Almost suicidal. But it was all we had. And if she doesn't give it to you? Then I don't sign anything. But I think she will. She wants to win. She wants to believe she's broken me. I finished writing a rudimentary document, ceding Antonio's custody to Carmen Delgado for temporary incapacity. I signed it with a trembling signature. Then I took my phone, and with my heart beating in my throat, dialed Carmen's number. She answered on the first ring. Did you decide to be reasonable, Elena? She said, with poisonous satisfaction. Yes, I lied, forcing a defeated tone. I can't anymore. You're right. I can't handle this. I'll sign the custody. Wise decision, she replied, and I could almost hear her smile. I'll send my lawyer. No, I interrupted her. I'll give it to you. In person. But I want one thing in return. You're not in a position to ask for anything. I want an address, I said, digging my nails into my palm. An address in Brazil. To be able to write to Laura. To know she's okay. It's all I ask. An address in exchange for your signature. There was a prolonged silence. I heard her breathe. She was weighing the risks. An address was a trail, a connection, but her arrogance, her certainty of victory could do more. Agreed, she conceded, with disdain. But it will be a postal address. A P.O. box, nothing more. Fine, I accepted, knowing it was better than nothing. Bring it, and bring the papers. Tonight, I want to finish with this. I'll be there in an hour, she said, and hung up. Clara looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. My God, Elena. What if she comes with someone? What if she tries to take him now? She won't, I said, with a confidence I didn't feel. She wants the papers in order. She doesn't want a kidnapping. That comes later. The next hour was the longest of my life. I prepared Antonio for sleep, sang him a song, told him a story. Each caress was a potential goodbye, each word an eternal I love you. I put him to bed and stood watching him, memorizing every line of his face, every freckle. He was my life, my reason for being. When the doorbell rang, I felt a strange, deadly calm. I told Clara to hide in the room with Antonio and to call the police if she heard anything strange. Then I took the kitchen knife she had suggested and hid it in my belt under my sweater. It was a cold and terrible weight against my skin. I opened the door. Carmen was there, impeccable as always, with a leather folder in her hand. Her smile was triumphant. Behind her, in the dark street, the same taxi from the morning was parked. Come in, I said with a flat voice. She entered. She smelled of victory and expensive perfume. I closed the door. The papers, she said, extending the folder, and here's the address. She took a white and plain card from her purse. I took it. On the card there was only one line of text, P.O. Box 774, São Paulo, Brazil. It was a mailbox, but it was something. Sign here. She pointed to a place on the document in the folder. It was an official paper, with a law firm's letterhead, the custody transfer. I took the pen she offered me. I held it over the dotted line. My hand trembled. I knew that once I signed, even if it was a farce, I'd be giving her immense power, but it was the only way. How is Laura? I asked, looking into her eyes. Her smile froze. She's fine, enjoying her honeymoon. No, I said, lowering the pen. She's not fine. I saw her in the video call. Carmen's eyes narrowed. A flash of alarm crossed her face, followed by quick recomposition. I don't know what you're talking about. Sign, Elena. We don't have all night. I know about the other girl, I continued, ignoring her. I know they took custody from Esteban. I know he's dangerous, and I know you know it. How can you do this? How can you deliver my daughter and grandson to a monster? Carmen paled. The mask cracked completely, revealing cold determination. My son is not a monster, she huffed. It was a mistake. That girl wasn't normal. She was a burden, like this one. She pointed with her head toward Antonio's room. Esteban deserves a chance. A normal family. Laura is young. She can give him more children. Healthy ones. This one is extra. But it's better than nothing. He's a child, after all. Manageable. I heard her words, each more poisonous than the last, and knew I was recording a confession with my phone, which I carried in my sweater pocket. It was a plan I had devised with Clara, but her words were so horrible, I almost collapsed. You're sick, I whispered. I'm realistic, she spat. Now sign. Or what? I challenged, taking a step forward. Or you send your son to finish the job with Laura. It was a random shot, but it hit the target. Carmen's face decomposed into a grimace of panic and fury. Shut up. Sign. No, I said, with a voice that no longer trembled. I'm not going to sign anything, and you're not going to take my grandson. She looked at me with contempt. Then she took out her phone. I'm going to call my lawyer, and social services. You'll see what's good. Call them, I said, and took out my own phone, showing her the screen where it showed I was recording. I'll show them this, and the newspaper article, and the pharmacy history, and the video call. We'll see who wins. Carmen froze. Her eyes, steely gray, fixed on the phone. She saw her career, her reputation, her perfect world, crumbling. And then, something broke inside her. It wasn't fear. It was rage. Pure, irrational rage. Damn witch, she screamed, and lunged at me, trying to snatch the phone from me. I dodged her, but she hit my shoulder. The folder of papers flew through the air. I screamed. Clara came running from the room. Elena. Carmen and I struggled, rolled on the living room floor. She was stronger than she seemed, and her desperation made her fierce. I felt her nails scratching my face. She smelled of her perfume and hate. Suddenly, her hand sought my neck, squeezing, my vision clouded. Let her go, shouted Clara, hitting Carmen on the back with a magazine. But Carmen didn't let go. The pressure increased. In my confusion, my hand instinctively sought the knife hidden in my belt. I slid it out. The steel shone under the lamp's light. Let me go, I gasped. She didn't. Her eyes were bloodshot. She only saw her obsession, and then, without thinking, with the last breath of air I had left, I raised the knife. I didn't stab her. I couldn't. Instead, I brought it toward her hands, which were strangling me, and pressed the cold blade against her knuckles. Let me go, I repeated, with a hoarse voice. The contact of the metal made her recoil with a jump, as if I had electrocuted her. She freed herself from me, staggering, and looked at her hands, unharmed but stained by the steel's touch. She looked at me, with the trembling knife in my hand, and then at Clara, who was hugging me. She saw she had lost. Panting, she stood up. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair disheveled. She was no longer the elegant lady. She was a defeated and dangerous woman. This isn't over, she spat, with hate. My son, he won't give up. Let him come, I said, holding the knife with a hoarse but firm voice. Let him come face me. Carmen turned around and left the house stumbling. The taxi started and drove away at full speed. I collapsed on the floor, trembling uncontrollably. Clara hugged me, crying. We had won this battle, but the war was far from over. From the room, Antonio's scared little face peeked out. Grandma, are you okay? I opened one arm to him, pressing him against me. The knife fell to the floor with a dull noise. I no longer needed it. Yes, sweetheart, I whispered, kissing his hair. We're okay. At that moment outside, sirens were heard, distant at first, then closer and closer. Clara had called the police. The house door was open, showing the dark night, and beyond that night, on another continent, my daughter was a prisoner. But now I had a mailbox, an address, and proof on my phone. The fight wasn't over. It had just begun, but I was no longer alone, and I was no longer afraid. I was a she-wolf, and I would defend my pack until the end. I looked at Antonio, then toward the open door, toward the uncertain future. The last line of the story was not yet written, but the next word I knew would be hope. The night became a whirlwind of blue and red lights, serious voices, and endless questions. 2 police officers, a young man and a woman with a tired face and empathy, filled the small living room with their imposing presence. I showed them the phone. Carmen's confession recording sounded, grotesque and clear in the house's silence. She was a burden like this one. This one is extra manageable. Officer Ramos, as she was called, visibly paled. Her partner clenched his jaw. "Mrs. Elena," said Officer Ramos gently, "this is very serious. We have sufficient evidence to arrest Carmen Delgado for coercion and threats, and to open an international investigation for forced disappearance of your daughter." The words "forced disappearance" made the floor move under my feet. It was real. It was no longer my suspicion. The law saw it that way. "But my daughter, what about my daughter?" I pleaded. "She's in Brazil. I have an address." I showed them the P.O. box card. "It's a mailbox," said the younger officer, with skepticism. "Hard to trace." "But it's something," I insisted, with tears of frustration. "And the marriage certificate. And the pharmacy. He's giving her sedatives." Officer Ramos nodded, taking notes on a tablet. "We're going to activate the protocol. Interpol, Brazilian Federal Police. With the recording and Esteban's history, they'll have a basis to look for them." "But," she paused, uncomfortable, "São Paulo is a huge city, and if they don't want to be found—" "My daughter does want to be found," I said firmly. "She called me. She asked for help." Clara, who had been making coffee for everyone, nodded beside me. "It's true, officers. We saw her in a video call. She seemed drugged, scared." The officers exchanged a look. You could tell they believed the story, but also that they knew international bureaucracy was a slow monster. "We'll do everything in our power, ma'am," promised Officer Ramos. "Now the first thing is to secure Antonio's legal custody. With what we have, no judge will grant custody to Carmen Delgado. We'll present all this to the duty court tomorrow. You're his family, his grandmother. You have every right." An immense weight lifted from my shoulders. Antonio would be safe, legally, with me. It was the first battle truly won. After the officers left, with the promise of putting discreet surveillance on the house in case Carmen tried something, the house remained in charged silence. Antonio, exhausted, had fallen asleep in my arms during the interrogation. I put him to bed in his bed, looking at him sleep. His peace was a precious good, stolen from the nightmare surrounding us. Clara stayed to sleep on the sofa. "I'm not going to leave you alone for a second," she said, and her determination was a wall against the world. But I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room, with the laptop, obsessed with the São Paulo P.O. Box 774. It was a number, a thread to pull. In a Brazilian forum, I found that this P.O. box belonged to a shell company, Global Logistics, a facade used for shady business, a dead end. Desperation was beginning to drown me again when, in Laura's laptop download folder, I found a file I hadn't seen before, a PDF named services_contract.pdf. I opened it. It was a lease contract for an apartment in São Paulo, in a luxury neighborhood called Jardins. The address was clear. Avenida Paulista, 2301, apartment 12A. The start date was 3 months ago, the same day as the marriage certificate. And the tenant wasn't Esteban Delgado Montenegro. It was Laura Marquez Lopez. My daughter had rented the apartment under her name. Why? Was it part of Esteban's plan to make her seem independent, or was it something she had done on her own? My heart beat hard. The 12th floor. The apartment, 12th floor. Esteban had said in the message. It matched. It wasn't a P.O. box, it was a real address. Without thinking twice, I dialed the international number for São Paulo police I had found online. It was madness. The time difference, the language barrier, but I had to try. A female voice answered in Portuguese. I, with clumsy and desperate English, managed to articulate, "My daughter, Laura Marquez, kidnapped. Apartment Avenida Paulista, 2301, 12A. Please, help." The woman on the other side spoke fast. Incomprehensible. Then there was silence. I heard typing. My hope rose. Were they taking me seriously? Suddenly, the woman's voice changed. It became cutting, almost annoyed. She said something I only managed to understand in part. Denuncia anónima. Já verificada. Nada constado. She hung up. I was left with the phone in my hand, frozen. What had she said? I looked up the words in the online translator. Anonymous complaint. Already verified. Nothing found. Someone else had reported before. Carmen? Esteban? And the police had already gone and found nothing? Or was it a lie to get rid of the crazy foreigner? The frustration was a punch to the stomach. I had the address, but it was useless. They were protected. They were ghosts with money and resources. I collapsed on the table, crying silently so as not to wake anyone. It was so close and so far. I knew where my daughter might be, but I couldn't do anything. The next day, everything was a succession of procedures and lawyers. Officer Ramos kept her word. A judge granted temporary custody of Antonio in my name, suspending any action by Carmen Delgado, who according to police had been located but not yet arrested, pending further investigations. It was a bitter victory. I knew she was out there, waiting. The afternoon of the second day, I was picking up Antonio's toys in the living room, trying to find a normalcy that didn't exist, when the doorbell rang. I went on alert. Clara approached the window. "It's a messenger," she said, with an envelope. I opened it cautiously. It wasn't from Carmen. It was from the bank, an official envelope. Inside, a terse letter, giving the irregularity detected in account number XXXXXXXXXX in the name of Laura Marquez Lopez. We proceed to its preventive blocking. Statement of recent movements attached. The statement. I unfolded it. The known movements were there. The cash withdrawals, the jewelry store, the airport, the online pharmacy, the transfer of €5,000 from E. Montenegro. But there was a new one. A movement from that same morning. An outgoing transfer from Laura's account. A huge amount. €30,000. Transferred to an account in Switzerland. In the name of a company that sounded like a tax haven. Helvetia Holdings AG. And the description of the concept, written by whoever made the transfer, made my blood freeze in my veins. Just one word. Silence. Silence. A payment for silence. From whom? For what? Was Esteban laundering money? Or was it Laura, paying for her freedom? Or was it something more sinister? The amount was overwhelming. €30,000. All the money Laura had saved from her job, plus Esteban's mysterious transfer, plus where had the rest come from? The world became darker and more tangled every minute. Esteban wasn't just negligent, he was a criminal, and my daughter was trapped in his web. That night, cradling Antonio to sleep, I felt fatigue so deep I feared I'd never get up again. I sang him his favorite song, a lullaby I sang to Laura. Antonio looked at me with his serious eyes, as if he understood something very grave was happening. "Grandma," he said, when I finished the song, "Mommy will come back." "Yes, my darling," I replied with a broken voice. "She'll come back. The bad man will go away," he affirmed, with the absolute certainty of a child. "Yes," I whispered, kissing his forehead. "He'll go away." When he finally fell asleep, I sat in the kitchen with the bank letter and the address of the São Paulo apartment in front of me. I felt incredibly small. An older woman in a provincial city fighting against machinery I couldn't even understand. The Swiss money, the shell company, the Brazilian police who wouldn't help. It was like trying to tear down a wall with bare hands. Clara sat next to me. "You can't give up, Elena," she said, taking my hand. "Laura needs you. Antonio needs you." "What else can I do?" I asked. Desperate. "I have an address, but it's useless. I have a payment to Switzerland, but I don't know what it means. It's like fighting fog." "Sometimes," said Clara, with a sad smile, "the answer is closer than you think. She got up and went to Laura's bedroom. She came back with the blue agenda, the one with the passwords. You've looked at the bank, the email. But Laura had another online life. She opened the agenda and pointed to a page. Look. On the page next to a cloud icon, there was a username and password for a storage platform. Laura kept her photos there, her important documents. I had never used it. With a strange premonition, I accessed the platform from the laptop. A folder named L opened. Inside subfolders, photos, university, work, and a last one, with a name that stopped my heart. E. I opened it. There were a few files, a scan of the marriage certificate, photos of Esteban, smiling too perfect, and an audio file, untitled, dated the week before her disappearance. I opened it. Laura's voice filled the kitchen. It was grave, low, as if she were whispering close to the phone's microphone. Mom, if you're listening to this, it's because something has happened to me. Esteban isn't who he says he is. I've known for a little while. I've seen things, messages on his phone. He talks with his mother about an arrangement, about starting over with a clean child. I'm scared, Mom. I've rented an apartment in Sao Paulo under my name, to have an escape route just in case. He thinks it's for us, but it's in case I need to flee. I found papers about a girl. A daughter he had. She died, Mom. She died of malnutrition when she was under his custody. He hid everything. He says it was an illness, but I've seen the medical reports his mother tried to destroy. Esteban is dangerous. If something happens to me, look in the apartment, in our house, in my closet door frame. I've hidden a USB drive. It has everything I've found. Take care of Antonio. I love you, Mom. Forgive me for everything. The audio ended. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. Clara and I looked at each other, with tears in our eyes. The girl. They didn't just take custody from him. The girl had died. Esteban was responsible, and Laura knew. That's why she had fled with him, maybe forced, but also with a plan, with evidence. The door frame, said Clara, breaking the spell. We ran to Laura's bedroom. With trembling fingers, I felt the wooden frame of her built-in closet. At the top, in an almost imperceptible groove, my fingers found a small, cold object, a USB drive. We connected it to the laptop. It contained scanned documents, the girl's autopsy report, which confirmed malnutrition as the cause of death, text messages between Carmen and Esteban talking about getting rid of the problem and finding a new solution, and one last audio from Laura, even more recent. He knows I've seen the papers. He's furious. He says we have to go to Brazil, that it's for our safety. He's lying. Something's going to happen. If I can't use my escape route, remember, Mom, the apartment, Paulista, 2301, 12A. The spare key is under the red pot at the end of the hallway, at the emergency stairway exit. Find me. We had the key, we had the address, and we had the definitive proof, the homicide by negligence of a child. I grabbed the phone and dialed Officer Ramos's number, regardless of the time. When she answered, I told her, with a voice that admitted no reply, I have the proof that Esteban Delgado Montenegro is a murderer, and I know how to get into the apartment where he may be holding my daughter. Officer Ramos didn't hesitate. Bring everything to the station right now. I'm going to call the judge and Interpol. This changes everything. Now it's not a disappearance. It's a case of kidnapping and homicide. I hung up. I turned to Clara. Antonio, awakened by the commotion, was at the room door looking at us with his wise eyes. Did you find Mommy? He asked. Almost, sweetheart, I replied, hugging him. Almost. I looked out the window. It was night again. But this time, the darkness didn't scare me, because now I wasn't just a she-wolf defending her lair. I was a hunter who finally had the trail of her prey. The final battle wouldn't be in my living room. It would be thousands of miles away, but I wasn't going to fight alone. I was going to carry with me the most powerful weapon, the truth. And this time, I wouldn't fail. The end.